To really understand the headlines you're seeing today, we have to look back, way back, because the crisis in Gaza isn't new. It's the latest, most violent chapter in a story that's been unfolding for 100 years. So to get a handle on how we got here, we're going to trace the key moments that led to this one. Right after the October 7th attacks by Hamas, these were the words from Israel's defense minister, and they signaled a massive escalation and the beginning of a truly dire humanitarian crisis for the more than 2 million people trapped inside the Gaza Strip. So what kicked this all off? It was a shocking, coordinated attack by Hamas militants. They killed over 1,400 Israelis and took around 200 people hostage. Israel's response was immediate and overwhelming. Relentless bombing campaigns and an order for more than 1 million civilians to leave their homes in northern Gaza.
The sheer scale of the violence on both sides brings up that one huge question. How on earth did we get here? Well, the answer isn't simple. And to find it, we need to go back, all the way to the beginning.
Okay, let's start with the roots of the conflict. At its heart, it's a story of two peoples with competing claims to a single, small piece of land. It's a story where war and displacement set the stage for absolutely everything that followed.
You can really see a chain reaction on this timeline. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapses and Britain takes control of the region. Then, after the Holocaust, Jewish migration skyrockets, and the newly formed United Nations comes up with a pretty radical solution in 1947, just split the land. But that one decision set off a domino effect. The creation of Israel, the first massive Arab-Israeli war, and then just 20 years later, another war that would define this conflict as we know it today. So here was the UN's idea. Divide the land into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab. Simple, right? Well, Jewish leaders accepted the plan, but Arab leaders rejected it completely. They argued it was totally unfair to the Arab majority who already lived there. And that fundamental disagreement, it lit the fuse for violence almost immediately. The day after Israel declared itself an independent nation, a coalition of Arab states invaded. 9 months of fighting later, Israel had won and ended up controlling even more territory than the UN had originally proposed. And this was the birth of the Palestinian refugee crisis. Over 700,000 people either fled or were forced from their homes.
And this is so crucial to understand. That single event created 2 foundational and completely opposite national stories. For Israelis, it's celebrated as the War of Independence, the heroic birth of their nation. But for Palestinians, it's known as the Nakba, which means the catastrophe, the moment of their mass dispossession and exile. Okay, let's fast forward to 1967. Tensions were at a boiling point again. Israel, fearing an imminent attack, launched a massive preemptive strike. In just 6 days, it captured the Gaza Strip from Egypt and the West Bank from Jordan. And this is the moment the military occupation of those territories begins, an occupation that, in many ways, continues to this day. So this new reality of military occupation completely changed the game. It sparks decades of resistance, it led to 2 major uprisings, and it gave birth to the militant group that would one day take over Gaza.
Now, here's a key word you need to know. Intifada. It's an Arabic word that literally means shaking off, and it became the name for the massive Palestinian uprisings against Israeli military rule.
The First Intifada blew up in 1987. The spark was a traffic accident involving an Israeli army truck. But really, the fuel had been building for 20 years under occupation. It started with protests and strikes, but it grew more and more violent, with deadly clashes between Palestinians throwing rocks and Israeli soldiers with guns. And it was right in the middle of this First Intifada that a new group appeared on the scene, Hamas. It was founded as an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, and its core mission was clear from the start. It was dedicated to the destruction of Israel and the creation of an Islamic state in its place.
All that violence actually pushed both sides toward a huge breakthrough, the Oslo Peace Accords. For the first time, Israel and the PLO, which was the main representative of the Palestinian people, officially recognized each other. It created this new body, the Palestinian Authority, and it laid out a path to a Palestinian state. But Hamas, they wanted no part of it. They rejected the deal and launched attacks specifically to try and blow up the peace process.
And by the year 2000, that peace process was already on life support. A controversial visit by an Israeli politician, Ariel Sharon, to a holy site in Jerusalem, known to Jews as the Temple Mount and Muslims as the Haram al-Sharif, was the spark that ignited the Second Intifada. This uprising was way deadlier, with suicide bombings and huge military crackdowns. It effectively killed any last bit of hope that came out of Oslo.
After the intense violence of that second uprising, the focus really narrowed in on Gaza. This next chapter is all about a unilateral withdrawal, a violent power grab, and the start of a 16-year enclosure that continues to this day.
So in 2005, Israel made a really dramatic move. It decided to unilaterally disengage from Gaza. That meant pulling out every single soldier and taking down every Jewish settlement. The idea, at least on the surface, was to end the direct, on-the-ground occupation of the Gaza Strip.
But what happened next changed everything. In 2006, to the surprise of many, Hamas won the Palestinian elections. A year later, they violently kicked the Palestinian Authority out of Gaza and seized total control. The response from Israel and Egypt was to impose a strict land, air, and sea blockade, controlling almost everything and everyone going in or out.
The human impact of this 16-year blockade has been absolutely devastating. For the people in Gaza, life became a daily struggle for the absolute basics. I mean, take water. According to a UN report from 2022, 78% of the water in Gaza was unfit to drink. And with the economy crippled by the blockade, a staggering 62% of the population needed food assistance just to survive. Let that sink in. More than half the people depended on aid to eat.
And on top of all that, daily life meant constant power cuts. On average, the electricity was out for 11 hours a day. Critics call this collective punishment. It's why you often hear Gaza described as the world's largest open-air prison.
Which brings us right up to the edge of the current war. For years, analysts weren't just calling the situation a crisis, they were calling it a powder keg, an unsustainable status quo that was just waiting for a spark.
As one expert put it, anyone who was watching this with any honesty knew that this situation couldn't last. The mix of occupation, the blockade, and absolutely zero political hope for the future, it created an environment where an explosion didn't just feel possible, it felt inevitable.
And on October 7th, that unsustainable status quo wasn't just broken, it was shattered into a million pieces. The old reality is gone, it's been replaced by something far more violent and uncertain. And the question that hangs over everything now is, what kind of future is even possible anymore for Israelis and Palestinians?